Hello people, this is Self-Tuts and we are continuing our series on AWS Lambda. In previous video, we have seen how to set up AWS CLI to create Lambda functions. In that, we have installed the AWS CLI, we have created a user in Amazon Web Services IAM, that is Identity and Access Management, and we have configured the AWS CLI so that the AWS CLI that is present in our local system can easily connect to the AWS services remotely. In this video, we'll see how to create Lambda functions from AWS CLI. So it helps when the project grows in size, which means if you're creating large number of Lambda functions, then it becomes very difficult to manage it through Web Console. So suppose there are more than 10 functions. So if you need to change these functions, then you need to open those functions in console and write the code there and then update it, or you need to change the configuration, then you need to go to every function, then you need to update the configuration. So it becomes very difficult. So when the size of your project grows, then it is beneficial or it is recommended that you create Lambda functions from AWS CLI. So to create Lambda function from AWS CLI must be installed and it must be configured. That is, a user must be present in your AWS IAM and you must generate a security key and a security token, and you must configure your AWS CLI through it by firing the command AWS configure. The most important point is when you are interacting to Amazon Web Services through AWS CLI, you must read the documentation because it is the best place where you can refer to things. If you get some doubt or if you get stuck at some point, then you must refer to those documentation. So we'll go to those documentation by typing AWS CLI Lambda create function. So this will give us this docs at awsamazon.com and we'll click on it. So it says, okay, so it is fine. We have opened the this documentation of create function here. So if you want to see the table of contents, you can go here and you can see that the documentation about every AWS service is present here. Like if you go for EC2 instance, the documentation is available that how to interact with EC2 using AWS CLI. So we are interested in Lambda function, so we'll click on this Lambda function. And then inside the Lambda function, these are the actions that you want to perform. Like you want to add permission, you want to delete an alias, you want to create a function. So we are interested in creating a new Lambda function. So we'll click on create function. So when you click on this gives the detailed documentation for it. And inside that you can see this is the action that you want to perform and these are the parameters that it accepts. So you must be wondering that some parameters are without this brackets and some are with this bracket. So this parameter is without a bracket and this is with a bracket, which means those parameters which are without brackets are mandatory and those parameters which are with bracket are optional. So either you can provide these parameters or you can skip these parameters, but these parameters are mandatory. So if you see create function, then it says the name of the function is mandatory, the runtime is mandatory, the role is mandatory, and the handler function is mandatory. So we need to provide all these parameters to create a Lambda function. So if we see the full code for creating a Lambda function, then it comes out like this, that this is the AWS CLI, that is AWS. Then we want to interact with the Lambda service of AWS. So this is the name of the CLI, then the service through which we want to interact, and then the action that we want to perform. So we are saying that through AWS CLI we want to interact with the Lambda service and we want to create a new function. So the mandatory parameter is what? The function name. So you need to provide a name of your Lambda function. Then you need to provide the runtime environment, that on which environment it will run, like it will run on Node.js or Python or Java. Then you need to provide the role. So this is an important point to note, that this role is for the Lambda function, that when this Lambda function is executing, suppose we have created a Lambda function and that needs to interact with DynamoDB. So we need to create a role in our AWS IAM and we need to provide that to this Lambda function while creating this Lambda function, so that when this Lambda function is running, then it has the permissions to interact with the DynamoDB. So suppose we have only provided the authorization, or we have only provided the permission to create items inside our DynamoDB. So we need to create a role and then we need to provide those permissions, and the ARN, that is Amazon resource name for that role, will be provided here. Then we need to provide the path of the handler function, that is when we are uploading the zip file from here, then where the path of our handler function exists, that which handler function we want to upload. Then we need to provide the timeout. This is a configuration basically for the Lambda function, that if within this much amount of time the response is not given from Lambda function, then please call for the timeout or abort the function, which means when the Lambda function is running and suppose we have provided a timeout of 5 seconds. So if within 5 seconds the Lambda function doesn't give us a response, then please abort that Lambda function. And it's a very important factor because we are charged for this timeout, that is the time for which your Lambda function is running, the more you will be charged, that is the more time it is running, the more you will be charged. Then you need to provide the path of the zip file, that where your Lambda function code is present, and then you need to provide the region of your AWS region of your this uploading the Lambda function, that where you want to upload. So these are the parameters that you want to provide and your Lambda function will be created. So you can find that going to the web console and doing all the changes there is very tedious, but here you just need to fire this command, and by firing this command you can easily create your Lambda function. So first we'll go to our AWS console and we'll see there that we'll try to go into the AWS console. I have already created an account, so I don't need to create a new one. I'll go to the console, and inside my console I'll see inside my Lambda service that these are the functions that are previously created. So I will try to create a new Lambda function with the name hello world and just simple console log statements. So what I'll do, I'll go to my Linux box and I'm inside my AWS Lambda folder. So what I'll do, I'll create a folder with the name app. So inside my app folder, I will do my coding for creating a Lambda function. So I'll open my Vim and then I'll open my nut tree. If you're wondering that how my Vim opens like that, then you can follow my course on Vim, which is also present on my YouTube channel, how to efficiently use Vim or how to create your development environment using Vim. So this is my app folder and I'll try to create a new child node, that is new file, and the name of the file will be index.js. So inside my index.js, my Lambda function will be created. So I'll say that my Lambda function is exports.handler. If you have read about the creating handler function in AWS Lambda, which is present in my previous video, so from there you can refer that we need to export a function which will be my handler function. So we have written exports.handler and we'll type the function, and this function accepts 3 arguments. So the arguments are event, context and callback. So this is my signature of the Lambda function, and then I'll do a simple console log that Lambda function successfully created using AWS CLI. And what I'll do, I'll just give a response, and that response will be what? I'll try to fire my callback function, and for a successful response I have to provide the first parameter as null and the second parameter as a object or anything string. So I'll just say success, and this is my Lambda function that I have created. So you can see that when I have saved this file in my Vim, then there is an error that I have not provided my semicolon. So I have configured my Vim using these plugins that whenever I write my JavaScript code or Node.js code, and if there is some potential error, then it will prompt me beforehand, and before running my function I can rectify those errors. So you can follow my Vim series to have these wonderful plugins in your Vim and to improve your development environment. So I have created the Lambda function and I'll save it, and here also it says I need a semicolon, so I have provided the semicolon. Now the function is correct, and I'll just quit my Vim. So the function has been created, and now what I'll do, I'll try to create a zip of it. So for creating a zip file, I have installed my zip utility in Linux using yum. You can use your package manager of your Linux system to download the zip utility. So I have downloaded it and I have installed it. So zip is present there, and I'll say zip and create what? Recursively create app.zip from where? From the app folder. So take all the contents of this app folder recursively, that if there is folder present inside, and create a app.zip. So what I'll do, I'll just hit enter, and you can see that this app inside my, I'll do ls, and you can see this app.zip has been created, and it contains the index file, index.js file. Now I'll try to create a new file, that is lambda create.sh. So this is my shell file, and I can run it through sh lambda create.sh, and I'll write some commands. So I'll say that I have created a script, and which is what? This is my shebang, that whenever I need to create a script file using bash, then I need to provide this. So inside this I'll say AWS Lambda create function. I'll just write these things which we have seen here, that is AWS Lambda create function, and this is the AWS CLI, this is the name of the service, and this is the action that we want to perform, and these are the parameters that we want to provide. So we'll say AWS Lambda create function, and to go to the next line we have provided a slash character, and then we'll say the name of the function that we want to create is hello world. So my the name of the Lambda function will be hello world, and then I need to provide the runtime. So the runtime will be what? Runtime will be Node.js 6.10. So this is my runtime environment in which my Lambda function will run when it is invoked. Then I need to provide a role. So for providing the role, you need to visit your AWS console and you need to get the role from there. So what I'll do, I'll just go to my services, and inside services I have inside my IAM, that is identity and access management, I'll go inside my role section, and you need to create a new role and provide permissions to it. So I've already created this role and it is having permission for AWS Lambda full access. So I'll just copy this ARN and I'll paste it there. So the role that I need to provide to this Lambda function when it is running is this, and then I need to provide the handler function. So handler function will be the path of my handler function, so which is present where? Inside the app folder, and inside the app folder this index file is present, and inside the index file this handler function is present. So if you want to see that, we can again go here, vim app index.js. So inside my index.js I am exporting the handler function. So this is my handler function. So I have written that only. Inside my app folder index file is present, and inside this index file this handler function is present. So this is the handler function, and then I need to provide the timeout, that if the response is not given, this is just a configuration that you need to provide. So I'll say that my timeout is 5 seconds, that if within 5 seconds the response is not given by the Lambda function, then please abort the Lambda function. Then I need to provide the path of the zip file. So I'll say zip file, and then I'll say file b, and then colon, then again colon, and I'll say app.zip. So it is present in my current folder. So I'll say that the path of the file is file B, that is a binary file, and then this is the file that I need to upload. Then what I need to provide the region where I want to upload my Lambda function. So it is US West 2. So this is all about creating your Lambda function or writing the code for Lambda function, and we want to upload it through this code. So what we'll do, we'll write and quit, and then we'll just say, we'll do a ls. You can find this lambda create.sh is present here, and we'll fire this sh lambda create sh, and what it will do, it will try to create a Lambda function there. So you can see it gives me a response that the function hello world has been created, and the function arn is this, the role is this, timeout, the things that we have provided in our lambda create.sh. So what happens when we fire this command sh lambda create, it runs this command, that is AWS Lambda create. So I find it useful that writing all these lines in a single line in our terminal, it is better to create a sh file and write it there so that you can refer to it after some time, and your code are also kept in a well structured manner, in a better place that you can refer afterwards. So this was all about creating a Lambda function using AWS Lambda, AWS CLI. And if you go to this services and inside Lambda function, you can see now that this hello world has been created. The runtime is Node.js 6.10. Previously we have seen that this hello world was not present there. So we'll click it and we'll see that this Lambda function has been created, but I need to revert it now because previously with the same name a function was created. So it says this here, Lambda function successfully created using AWS CLI, and the callback is null and success. We'll try to run it. So after running, it will give me the response with a green tick, that is success, and inside my logs it will say Lambda function successfully created using AWS CLI. So you have seen that how easy it is to create a Lambda function using AWS CLI. So you need to create a zip, and you need to fire this command, or you need to get this AWS CLI command, and you need to fire this command. So this was all about creating a Lambda function using AWS CLI. Hope you like my channel. Please subscribe to it, and if you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Thank you.